As you know, Trump picked his Supreme Court nominee last night. I was not surprised who it was. It was Brett Kavanaugh, who might as well be the leading right-winger that was up for the court. He is considered in right-wing circles to be an all-star. He is considered to be very, very conservative, to the point where essentially he was the Koch brothers' preferred pick. The Koch brothers essentially, through backroom communication, said, if you don't pick this guy, we're not going to drop hundreds of millions of dollars into the midterm elections for the Republicans. That was basically what happened here. The Koch brothers decided on Brett Kavanaugh and threatened Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and by extension Donald Trump, that if you don't give us who we want, we're not going to give you the money you need to keep the House, keep the Senate, all that good stuff. All you got to say about this pick is he basically has Trump's mind in a legal robe. He is the apple of Trump's eye. He believes in unprecedented executive powers for the president. He believes essentially that the president can decide if something's can make decisions if he thinks something should be unconstitutional. Not if something is unconstitutional, but if he should be unconstitutional. So, Brett Kavanaugh, here we go. Judge Brett Kavanaugh was appointed to the Supreme Court last night. He still has to go through nominations, all that good stuff. But this is from ABC. If Judge Kavanaugh becomes Justice Kavanaugh, it will be the greatest triumph of the Federalist Society. Not exactly a progressive institution, very right-wing. Kavanaugh's nomination has sparked a great deal of concern on the left about issues like abortion, affirmative action, gay rights, and other social issues. There's another issue, however, where Kavanaugh has staked out strikingly hard right positions, executive power. And this is where I think Trump really made his decision based on. That Kavanaugh essentially believes in blanket powers for the president. Before becoming a judge, Kavanaugh spent most of his career working for the executive branch of the federal government in the Justice Department under President George H.W. Bush, in Ken Starr's office of independent counsel. Ken Starr obviously went after Clinton on impeachment, in the White House counsel under George W. Bush, and finally as President Bush's White House staff secretary. Now, these increasingly powerful and yet professionally narrow positions seem to have given Kavanaugh a sweeping, even unbalanced view of how powerful presidents should be under the law. Well, if you're a president that has, whether we agree with it or not, has a criminal investigation underway, and eventually, if Mueller brings charges against him, potentially could go to the Supreme Court upon appeal, Trump's going to want somebody who believes in very big powers for the executive branch and the president, particularly in the area of whether a president can obstruct justice. So, for instance, on the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, Kavanaugh has argued for expansive presidential authority in what used to be called the global war on terror, especially when it comes to the incarceration and treatment of accused enemy combatants. So, in this case, seems like he is the apple of Trump's eye, as well as probably George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and the whole neoconservative gang, including Bill Kristol. Kavanaugh's also called for overturning a landmark 1935 New Deal-era Supreme Court opinion that for 83 years has been one of the foundations of modern American governance. It's called Humphrey's Executor, First United States. And in it, a unanimous Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of independent agencies like the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Federal Election Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and many dozens more. Kavanaugh's views, though, the very independence of these agencies as an unconstitutional infringement of the power of the president. To be sure, the president has the duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Kavanaugh wrote. That certainly means the executive has to follow and comply with laws regulating the executive branch, at least unless the president deems the law unconstitutional, in which event the president can decline to follow the statute until a final court order says otherwise. Well, that's kind of scary. So this guy's basically saying, a president can basically decide whether something is unconstitutional, and as a result, if he thinks something is unconstitutional, he can decline to follow the statute until a final court order says otherwise. You better believe that was presented to this president, who's not a big believer in following precedent, statute, or that he has to comply with laws. So if anything, I don't think Trump picked him particularly because he might overturn Roe versus Wade or because he will be a rubber stamp for conservative policies. I think he picked the person who, in ink, has basically put in writing that I believe the president should have unlimited powers and could even decide whether something's unconstitutional, which should scare every single person. Every single person. Progressive, neoliberal, conservative, doesn't matter. Very, very scary. And he has called on Congress to protect presidents from the exact same kind of wide-ranging probe he enthusiastically participated in when he worked as a key aide to Ken Starr's investigation of Bill Clinton. Quote, Congress should give back to the president the full power to act when he believes that a particular independent counsel is out to get him. Such a step not only would make the special counsel accountable, but it would also force the president and his surrogates to put up or shut up. Can anyone say Robert Mueller there? I mean, whether you agree with the Mueller investigation or not, I mean, this is pretty much speaking to Robert Mueller. Congress should give back to the president the full power to act when he believes that a particular independent counsel is out to get him. Such a step not only would make the special counsel accountable, but it would also force the president and his surrogates to put up or shut up. So, right there, folks, you got, I mean, this guy, Kavanaugh, is an authoritarian. He believes in authoritarianism. He believes in unlimited power for a president or dictator or whatever you want to call it. That's what he believes. So it's kind of a match made in heaven or hell or whatever you want to say with Trump. Because Trump deems himself as an autocrat or, totalitarian, autocrat, whatever you want to say. Trump does not believe laws apply to him. Trump believes the power of the president oversteps the power of Congress, the power of the judiciary, pretty much any other powers. So this guy is scary. I don't particularly see anything that makes me think he is an automatic to overturn Roe versus Wade. I looked into his background. He's actually on the record as saying Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. So I don't think, liberals are rightly worried about that, especially women. I don't think he is automatic as the female judge that was in the final running, who is a social conservative, and I think we'd have a lot more problems if she were the pick for Roe versus Wade. But what I do think is, as long as Donald Trump is president, he has an ally in the Supreme Court that basically believes the president is a king and could choose to do things based on whether he thinks a law is unconstitutional, can choose to rein in a special counsel if he thinks the special counsel needs to be reined in. For the three branches of government, and the judicial branch is supposed to be part of that checks and balances, Brett Kavanaugh doesn't particularly think, he doesn't seem like he believes that much in checks and balances and three equal branches of government. It seems like he believes the president is way more powerful and should have way more power than the Congress as well as the judiciary. And that is scary. So I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig here. It's a very conservative pick. I think he is about the same as Neil Gorsuch. I don't think he's any worse or any better. I do think Kennedy, who's retiring, was considered the swing judge and often ruled with the liberals. I don't think you'll see Brett Kavanaugh rule with the liberals on the court often. So it is a setback. There's no mistake. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Brett Kavanaugh is not who you would want on the Supreme Court. With that said, now it comes down to is the Democratic Party, who we know is bought off. I mean, that is a whole nother story, which I'm about to get to. Because boy, did I get some heat. Boy, did I get some heat on Twitter last night apparently I'm responsible for Trump being elected as well as Brett Kavanaugh being appointed to the Supreme Court. So I'll show you that in a minute. But will the Democratic Party actually fight this nomination? Will they take it to the mat? Will they do everything within their power to make sure this is delayed, and he can't get nominated? I'm going to give you, if you think back to DACA, have a Democratic, the DACA fight, I think in March, have a Democratic Party fought for about a day and then gave in. I think you're going to see the same thing. I also don't think there's a chance in hell that you're going to see Senator Joe Manchin up for re-election, tough challenge in November. Senator Joe Donnelly of Indiana up for re-election, tough challenge in November. Senator Heidi Heitkamp up for re-election, hard general election. These are not actual progressives. They're barely even Democrats. They're Republicans. They're not going to put their political career at stake and try to block President Trump's nominee. They're just not going to do it. But it is possible on the other side. There's murmurs that Rand Paul is a little lukewarm on him. I would have a very, very hard time seeing Rand Paul actually choosing to block Trump's Supreme Court nominee. I think he's lukewarm on him because Kavanaugh basically thinks we should have unlimited powers to go to war, combat the war on terror. For instance, on the federal appeals court in Washington, Kavanaugh has argued for expansive presidential authority in what he called the global war on terror, especially when it comes to the incarceration and treatment of enemy combatants. So that's what Rand Paul is hung up on, as everybody should be hung up on. If it's not bad enough that we're at war right now with 7 or 8 countries, I don't think we need a Supreme Court justice that says, let's just have unlimited war for the global war on terror. So Rand Paul is not an automatic. I also think Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, 2 Republican women, are not automatic unless he is a firm, I believe Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. So I also think Doug Jones, recently elected in Alabama, who pretty much has voted with the Republicans on just about anything, will probably vote for Brett Kavanaugh. So you have 4, possibly 5 Democrats that might vote for this guy, but you have 3 Republicans who might not. And by the way, nobody's talking about this, but it is possible. I don't know what John McCain has said. If somebody has seen if John McCain has said he will vote for him, let me know. I haven't seen anything about what John McCain will do, who, obviously is dealing with brain cancer and is not returning to the Senate anytime soon. To my knowledge, it's terminal. So, Brett Kavanaugh, there's no sugarcoating it. Bad news. We should be worried about Brett Kavanaugh. I don't think it radically changes things, only because the Supreme Court was 5-4 with Anthony Kennedy. It's still 5-4 with Brett Kavanaugh. The only difference is I think you're going to see Kavanaugh voting with the liberals less, whereas Kennedy voted with the liberals more. So it definitely is a way more conservative, reliable conservative pick than Anthony Kennedy.